harawa kia tata mai koe kia mātou mō tēnei rā. Manakitia mātou mahi katoa I runga I te ingoa o te matua o te tama o te wairua tapu. Ake, āmene.
Amen.
Okay, so apologies. I haven't received any. Kylie, you made it on the farm. Kylie's out on the farm today.
I'm in the cow shed, so all is good.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I just put apologies for Yvonne for lateness. She didn't say she wasn't coming, so.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. Any conflicts of interest?
You want to move the apologies?
Oh yes.
Sorry, I'm happy to move them.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Yep, conflicts of interest.
No, nothing more than normal for me.
Okay, so yep, I'll move those that we have none. Got a seconder?
Second.
Yep. Okay. Confirmation of the previous minutes.
I wasn't there, so I can't do it.
I'm happy to move those minutes, Madam Chair.
Okay. And just in this, I wonder, oh, hang on a minute, I'm just trying to find a place. I'm looking on my phone. Sorry. I just wonder whether we bring up in here about the speed limits. So sorry, Mark, you brought up about the speed limits and I wondered whether we just had brought it up here if we're talking about waka kotahitanga.
Yes, kia ora tātou. I can start this off and the waka kotahi in the area around the funding. But yeah, the speed limits is a piece of work that we are doing. We are going around all of the rep groups and having discussions around this. A formal paper will come will come to the next meeting, which is in the middle of our consultation period. But what I have got is I've asked Bryson to come along here and just give a heads up to the areas of particular interest to you guys to start thinking about before that comes up and to have a brief discussion. So Bryson's been given a job of just doing a brief discussion on this. Thanks.
Good morning.
Morning.
So as Kevin's mentioned, we are working on speeds and we're working on a speed management plan. So at the moment we've kind of got a draft speed management plan. This is to go to council in the February meeting, the 22nd, and then from that we'll hopefully gain approval to go out to consultation mid-March, and that will run right through to mid-May. So we're looking at a 2-month consultation period because we understand this is a very topical issue in our community, and we want to make sure we have plenty of time for people to give their feedback, and we'll be reaching out in many different channels in order to do that. Obviously, in terms of the changes that we're looking at in our draft speed management plan, we're looking at changes on Pohepi Road and around the schools. So that's Whakamara School, Mangakino School, and Terahonga School in your area.
And Marotiri.
So Marotiri.
That's a state highway.
Correct, yeah. So Marotiri will be taken care in the state highway speed management plan when they develop that.
So, Bryce, where would Kotahi or whatever they call themselves be looking at that Marotiri one? Same time, or are they lagging behind?
I'll have to get back to you on that because I'm not entirely sure, but I can definitely ask.
Yeah.
I can bring that through to the next meeting. So with our speed limits around schools, we're looking to offer some advice. We're looking at changing all our school speed limits down to 30 during school hours. And then some of the ones in more urban areas, we're looking to change to permanent 30. So the Mangakino school will be looking at a permanent 30. Parts of Pohepi Road are changing. So I hope you can appreciate that parts of Pohepi Road aren't as as flash as what they could be. Some of the quite windy bits towards the Mangakino end of Poepi Road, and therefore we're looking at a lower speed limit for that section of 80. And then there's a piece in the middle that we think, oh, it's reasonably good. There's the road's wide, reasonably wide. It's quite straight. It's quite flat. There's no real corners that are going to catch anyone out. So we're looking at a slightly higher speed of 90. And then there's a section between Whangmata Road and the current 80 km/h speed limit that we are looking at 80, and that's based off some data. So we went and collected some data around current speeds along Poepi Road, and based off that data, we found that the actual travel speed, the average travel speed along that section is about 80 km/h. So we're going to propose a slightly slower speed limit for that area just to improve that safety. And it's around those intersections. So Oranui Road, there's quite a series of crashes around Oranui Road and Poepi Road that are quite severe crashes that have happened there in the past. And if we lowered it down to 80, we'll gain some improvements around there. I guess the other thing to note with the speed management plan is it's not just about changing speed limits, it's about looking at the road and what can we change to the road as well to better maintain, or better to see that speed limit as the correct speed limit. So there are a few changes to happen around those places. But other than that, that's kind of what we're looking for in your area. And there's a whole heap of other changes around the district which you're welcome to give feedback on, but that's more specifically for you.
Thanks very much, Bryson.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Okay, so any other matters arising from the minutes? Okay, so we've got a mover for those minutes. So I can move them.
I'll second them.
Thanks. Okay, so 4.1, current action points update. So is that Greg and Julie? Is that you, Greg? Are you going to be doing this?
Yes, I just turned this off mute.
Okay. First one, Te Awhina Hall. I haven't got an update on that. We haven't been involved in that one.
So has anyone been doing it? Like any of the team been doing it, or not at this stage?
I think Libby's been doing some work in that space, so I'll ask her to chat to it. Thanks.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. Morena all. I can just give a wee comment, and I don't think we don't have memory on in the hui, do we? Just no, ka pai. So Helmut Hautang in our team, and also David Ramaka, who is currently leading the iwi and co-governance team, have been working with memory and the marae around and having a few conversations in Mangakino, which has been good. So they're doing a bit of work around planning a wānanga with marae and community on Te Awhina Hall. So that's to get that direction and kind of where they want to go there. But also looking at some funding. So going through the lotteries facilities fund to look at some funding for those upgrades and whatnot. So the conversations are ongoing. A part of that also is obviously keeping that relationship strong between the marae community and council. So still a work in progress, but we'll keep you updated.
Awesome. Thanks, Libby. Cool.
Yeah,
okay, back to you.
So next one is the Mangakino toilet update, and I guess just on that we were looking at probably 6 to 9 months delay in actually being able to source the original one. Since that time, conversations with the suppliers we had been dealing with, we probably no longer have enough money to build the one that we were proposing. And those suppliers are currently about 45 units behind. So they're a backlog to about that degree. and with supply chain issues and so forth. So I wondered if this was an opportunity. You remember we did have, there was a couple of conversations around with the rep group around the siting of it, whether it was on council land, whether it was on the existing site, and wondered if this is an actual opportunity to take a step back, develop a more comprehensive plan for the whole of the lakefront, because we've got a few other pinch points there, obviously, with the boat users and playgrounds, those sort of things. It's a very, very small space that we're trying to do at times of the year, and it is only limited times of the year. We're trying to do an awful lot of activities in a very small space and trying to keep all those different interest groups happy. I think it's probably time we actually develop something that we can, obviously we've got Bus Stop Cafe down there. We need to have conversations with him about his future as well. If the toilet block the new one were to go in where the current one is, it would just about butt up with the footprint size, it would just about butt up against the back of the bus. So, but haven't had any conversations with him yet because we don't know that that's actually where it's going or what. So that makes that quite difficult. So I think we need that sort of plan. It never came out of the APR report. We had a very small, undetailed, missing a lot of detail sort of plan. It was quite a high level little concept drawing. I think we need something more than that. So that's my suggestion. But yeah, over to you.
Well, going forward, Greg, who do you suggest should be sort of leading this charge? And you're saying we don't have the money for it. So how much does this toilet block going to cost in round figures?
Oh, so we put, I forget the exact number. I think it was over 300,000 that we put in there, and that's no longer enough. At the time, I think the quote we had was 280, 275, 280, and we added in considerable contingencies at the time of the LTP, thinking that we'd have plenty for all of those unforeseen things that seem to always crop up, and all of a sudden we haven't even got enough for the basic unit. So they're looking at cost increases in the order of sort of 40 to 60%. So that's been difficult, but even progressing things like the road without a plan about where everything's going, you know, what's the alignment of the road? If we put it in on its current alignment, is that actually going to be a problem later on? And there was discussion about, could we move it over further? But those sort of things haven't been decided. If we move it off its current alignment, then we've got culverts and things to go in if we go further uphill. So all of those things just impact on the costs. And I just sort of feel it's a very, very difficult to get progress down there when we haven't got a cohesive plan on how we move forward.
So can we use some of the funding that we've got to get a plan done? Because we need to go out to community consultation. So we need to go out with a plan rather than just a blank canvas, I think. Because if people can see something, then they can say, yes, it would work, or no, it wouldn't. And if we just go out with blank, then it's just going to be too difficult to have those conversations. So I think we definitely need a plan. So can we use that money? And if we don't have people in-house that can do it, can we look externally to get someone to help do that plan?
Yes, we definitely can. There's a number of companies that do that sort of work. We haven't got any budget specifically targeted to that, and I don't know if we'd want to necessarily touch the project money, but we could. There is that extra that we got put in, obviously, in the OPEX budgets. You remember that extra amount we got put in, so we could do work at the tree and work on the lakefront on land we don't own and that sort of thing. So that's sitting there as extra in the operational budget.
Yeah, because I'd like to see a plan developed, a concept plan. It doesn't have to be too detailed, but just enough to be able to go out to community, get their feedback, then draft a good plan, and then go to our, to Lynn's, Mercury, and then get their say so. Actually say yes.
Sorry, through the chair first. This thing's been sitting around a while on the action sheet, so I'll put an action down there that over the next month, myself, Libby, and Greg will get in touch with you, and we'll run a little bit of scoping what we want to do in this space, and we will move it forward. Okay. Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much.
Let's just, you're running a risk of getting into the too hard basket unless it starts moving forward now. Let's keep it going. Got to get it going.
Okay.
Yep. So really, I guess that leads us into the next one. And Mercury didn't really have the appetite to enter into an interim agreement. They feel that the one that we have, the draft agreement, is good enough for us to proceed on at the moment, because everything's there. Nothing's changed for them, I guess. Or for Lynn's, we're just waiting for that land ownership, land tenure settlement to be decided.
So how long have we been waiting for that now?
A while, but so Anaru Smiler, GM for Wairarapa Moana, couldn't make our tree meeting this week because he's in Wellington, and they're actually going through the final stages of that Waitangi claim.
Well, that sounds promising.
So he's at Parliament now, hopefully not part of the protest. Mangakino Sports Hub. So the flooring's scheduled to be installed. We had some carpet tiles here at the depot that we took out of the showroom here when we moved in. So those were all uplifted and in storage. We took some of those over, spoke to Hawks, the flooring contractors. Everybody thought, yep, we'll reuse those. They were in good condition. So those were all shipped over there last week, and they're going to get laid in the next week or so. And then the other little finishing jobs, holes and bits and pieces that needed to be filled, are scheduled to be done in March as well.
So is it not going to have lino?
There's another section of lino.
Okay.
With carpet tiles are doing the carpeted section.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, there was a number of areas to finish off.
Yep.
The removal of the metal dump site, so still awaiting that meeting with Waka Kotahi, and Dennis said the guy has been down, but he hasn't let Dennis know. Dennis just spotted him in town, going through town one day. So he was following up with him because he's overdue for a site meeting, both on this issue, but also on a number of things with Dennis as well. The dam footpath. So we got hold of Mercury, and they said that was their intent. For operational safety reasons, they still stand by that design and layout. So they didn't see a need to change it. On the Whakamaru side of the dam, on the TDC side, our transportation team did work in with them about footpaths and layout on that side. But the other side of the dam, where we're talking about here, is actually in South Waikato District. So it's a little bit harder to actually
yes, it is. Yeah.
Get involved in that way. But I just wonder if we maybe we can. I'll have a word to Dennis and see if he can have a talk to his counterpart in South Waikato, and just whether there's something they can pick up with Mercury on that side.
Okay, thank you.
And the last one's the Pokani Tōtara, and we've sort of done operationally, we've done everything that we had planned to do at this stage, and things are still looking good. We've lost a few little trees up there that have been pulled out and finished up probably in somebody's garden, but so those will get replaced shortly when we've got a degree of comfort that they're going to survive the weather. And I missed the last meeting up there with the owners and so forth, but Whitu was there and Lisa was there, so I don't know whether you're going to cover off that meeting, Lisa, in your community updates, or Whitu.
Is Whitu there? Does he want to speak to it, or? I see his name, but I'm not sure if he's actually in the meeting or not.
Not sure.
I think he might have been. He's muted himself again.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything to add, Lisa, or are you going to do it in yours?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, like, yeah, all the planting that's been done. It's looking super tidy in that space, in that entry space, and that. So the teamwork that's been done to tidy that up, and the planting's been really, really good. And I think probably, apart from a couple of things, pretty much successful. So that looks cool. There was, like they said, there was a catch-up meeting up there, and walk into the tree and a discussion around what that space looks like and future proofing of the tree. I think that discussion still has quite a bit of wider discussion around the thinking around that, but it's more positive than it has been for the last, I don't know, 15 years that we've been around. So that's super cool. And I know Whitu probably had some different conversations with them as well. I'm not sure. So I think it's progressing at the stage that it probably needs to be at the moment, but there's still a huge amount of work to do in there. But it's promising that Wairapa Moana are sort of leading that conversation now. So that's super positive. Yeah.
Awesome.
And Kirsty, I spoke to Anaru yesterday, and they are certainly proceeding with the plans for the protection of that second tree, which will make sure people don't do the same as what they'll do to the third one. And they are, progressing along with that.
That's awesome.
I would say, certainly in the next couple of months, we'll see some action.
Oh, excellent. And have we got enough signage? What's happening with that?
Yeah, they're doing that in-house.
Awesome. Yep. Great.
Want to make it relevant to what they want to see there.
Sure. Oh, that's good. Okay. All right, then. I just wondered on these action points as well, just an update about the Whakamaru water system. I thought that was going to be on the action points. Have we got any update on that? So that's the water ring that's happening at Forestry Road. What was happening with that?
Yeah, so through the chair, just caught up on this in the last couple of weeks. There's been some work gone through the exec team. It's around the funding in particular, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised around the outcome of that, but we're just thinking about how we get that in front of the elected members. But we're moving forward favourably in the near future. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. That's awesome.
That one was about with the elected members last week, and I've agreed to put it forward as part of the annual plan for that funding.
Cool. I missed that one. Thanks.
Great. Awesome. Okay then. Right. So we'll move those action points. Can I get a mover, please?
I will.
Thanks, Yvonne. And seconder. Thanks,
I'll
Kylie.
second it.
Oh, yeah. All right. So now we'll move on to the update from our community coordinator.
Take it that everyone's read it. And any questions around it?
Any questions there for Lisa? Well,
gone.
Has the what's the uptake for the firewood for the wood bank?
Yeah, so I've still got to meet with Charlene hopefully at the end of this week. So the standard firewood bank account is still being utilised really, really well. And then of course we have the extra timber that has come out of the old Mangakino Lodge site, which is predominantly poplar trees, I understand. And that there was some discussions around that, so that where to store that, etc. And that has gone into that that section of land where the trees come down for Wairapamoana. So now, so that was gifted by Kerry Ring sort of to the community. So it's just around how we manage that with the people that are paying as well, and how that gets spread out evenly over throughout the community. I think Whitu's part of that conversation as well. I'm kind of just sitting in the background, really just doing that advertising and supporting Charlene and sort of promoting that space. But it was super cool to get that extra timber in for sure. So I don't know if Whitu might have more on that.
Okay, I just got a text from Whitu. He's having trouble getting his microphone to work. So he's there. He's just, yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair, there's a new principal at the Mangakino School, Sheree, is it? Is it worth getting her to just have a meet and greet one day, the next meeting, just to say good day? And so to give a bit of support, perhaps? I don't know. Lisa, have you met her?
No, I haven't had the opportunity to meet her yet, but I kind of thought that probably the next meeting, give her a couple of months to get her feet on the ground and herself sorted, and then she could think about meeting with us, and then it'll be coming into that sort of funding time space as well. So definitely plan on trying to catch up with her in the next couple of weeks. I just wanted to give her a bit of settling in time first. Yeah,
really important cog of the community is the principal. Sorry,
Another mighty export from Ruparoa. There you go.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
Kylie, you already know us, so that's great. Yeah, I think very important part, cog in the community. Just a meet and greet, and she knows she's got our support.
Yeah, I think that everything so far has been really positive. Like, did she maybe teach at Maratuli School years ago? Seems that quite a few people locally may sort of know her.
Yes, and her husband's a stock truck driver with Midlands.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Very good.
I was going to have, sorry, just in addition to that, I was going to have, and I haven't got it through on my email yet, just a bit of a blurb from Christine Stevens, sort of a brief update on that development of that old Mangakino Lodge site. It's considering the amount of lockdown and time off that we've had, they've done pretty well. Ratou Construction have been up there the whole time. It looks like that space will open at the end of March, start operating for accommodation. Some of it's shared facilities, there's a couple that are not. And there is plans in the pipeline to have a wee bit of an open day sort of community, come have a look, etc., etc. I thought I might have had the actual name that it's going to be called, so it won't be called the Mangakino Community Lodge, but it'll be something quite different. But and the sections, the expressions of interest for the potential for the sections that are going around where the trees used to be has been pretty positive as well, from what I understand. So yeah, I could share the actual blurb when I get it in final detail with everyone.
Oh, that's good. It's it's amazing how big that area is now that the trees have been are gone. Yeah, it looks huge.
So
yeah, there was a little bit of conversation around people not sort of wanting it gone, but the poplars were actually quite, like all the stuff that used to float around for people that do have any sort of respiratory and hay fever type of issues. I think it's probably a super positive move, and you noticed it quite starkly the first sort of week, and now you kind of don't really notice that they were really there, but they say that the views from up there are pretty better than what they expected. And there's not a lot of covenants on how that space, there's going to be a lot of planting down the front and then that building space. So yeah, it's looking good.
So where is this lodge?
At the very end of Rangatira Drive, where you would turn to go right down to the lakefront, and you go turn left up to the transfer station. It's just those big buildings that used to be, were they the big kitchens or the part of the
Ministry of Works?
Ministry of Works.
Ministry of Works. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you, Lisa.
I'm just sorry, just say
yep.
one note thing. Just a thing that we lost. Jenny Morrison passed away a couple of days ago, and she and her husband were long-term members of St John, and she's been unwell for a number of years. So there is a remembrance service at their home this weekend. It's online, but definitely they would have connected with a lot of people in our wider community over the. I hate to think how many years that they worked with St John, but Bill still does, I think, in Taupō. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad she's passed. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, she did a huge number of years for our St John's ambulance. Yeah. Okay then. Yep,
sorry, Lisa, Kirsty, sorry, but I could perhaps have the details on someone email me the family details, and I'll send a letter or something. Be cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do know the lady, and I've probably met her, but I think it'd be lovely to acknowledge her service.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, so Lisa, do you want to move your report?
Sure.
And yep, I'll second it. Okay, community engagement update.
All right, so this is a new item we've popped into the agenda, and it's a little bit of one that is open to be shaped however you see fit. Something we've done for the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board is an opportunity to kind of keep the board in the loop of what's happening from an engagement perspective. That's sort of off the back of a bit of a request for board and for elected members and the rep group members to kind of know a little bit more around those conversations that are happening, but also it kind of reflects a bit of a shift of how we're doing things within the organisation. And there's this thing called localism that we talk about quite a bit, and it's around putting smaller communities, I guess, in the hot seat to make some of those decisions, or to be more to have face-to-face two-way conversations between TDC and those communities, and just shifting things up a little bit. So I wanted to pop this onto your agenda and get any feedback on whether you think it's a good idea or if you want to do things differently, but really just to give you a better idea of those conversations that we're having, who we're talking to, working with Lisa, and then hopefully we can do things a bit differently going forward. I mentioned at your last meeting, we are reshaping the community engagement and development team. We're looking at putting more resource on the ground in your rohe, which hopefully will be gratefully accepted, but we're still going through that process at the moment. One of the other roles that I briefly discussed at your last hui was putting more support into that funding space. So not only looking at getting more support for funding of council projects, but also supporting community groups to apply for the pūtea that's out there, equipping them with the tools that they need to be prepared, but also to know about funding that's there and how to go about it and how to best put their application forward. So with that in mind, the first thing that I just wanted to touch on was the community grants. The next round's coming up. It kicks off, or it's open 1st of March, runs through till the 26th of March. And then our next round comes around quite quickly on the 4th of July until the 29th of July. Those changes for those rounds are due to the upcoming elections. We've had to pull them a little bit more forward in the year. Something we're also doing a bit differently is helping to promote those grants to our communities, but also celebrating those who get the grants, the good work that they're doing. So instead of just saying we've got a grant open, apply, and then you make those decisions around the grants, we're actually going back and checking in with those groups to see what the money's been spent on, how it's benefited the community, and using that as a bit of a tool to further promote the grants. So really keen if you do know of anybody in those communities that we can support in that way to get them into the grant application process, please let me know. Really, I think a few of the other things that I was going to touch on have already been mentioned around Te Awhina Hall. Bryson talked around the speed management work that's happening, and he will obviously come and speak to that at the next meeting. But we're going to do that engagement a little bit differently as well. We're going to look at what those proposed changes are and how they're going to affect different parts of our district. So going and having those conversations in Te Rohunga or in Mangakino and Whakamaru, and just make sure that people know how they can have their say, but so they can actually understand what those changes will be. And we'll be rolling that out a little more with some other projects as well. I think the Whakamaru water, obviously we're waiting to find out the outcome of where that will go, but again, we'll be having those conversations with the community, and because it's not a massive, there's not massive numbers of people, we can look at different ways that we can have those conversations as well. So that's probably it for now, but happy to get any feedback at any point around this agenda item and how it can best benefit yourselves, and so you get a better picture of what's happening in those conversations that are going on in the community.
Thank you for that.
Oh, hey,
I
Fidu.
managed to do something. My daughter walked in and saved me. Yeah, I haven't got much to add. I missed a couple of things because I was getting cut out here and there. Yeah, it was an interesting walk up the totara tree with Lisa and Anaru, as well as Tui Tamari. And Rui, he came up and he was quite an insightful person. He's got a lot of knowledge that is going to be able to help in that space. So he's been very good to have on board, and also some guy who does some planting for Wairarapa Moana as well, and just helping out on that respect. So there's some work underway, like Lisa has said. And regarding, I think it's going to be called Lake Maraitai Lodge, the development. I've been up there as well, working pretty hard and doing quite a bit of stuff. So it's quite an exciting, and he's doing a very good job. He's a generous person, like Lisa said, contributing the firewood for the community. Yeah, but I haven't got much to do with that. And regarding the lakefront development, I totally agree. We've had some concept drawings done, and we've talked about the plans that have been put in place before to try to find what we're doing. I don't know if we're reinventing the wheel or what that looks like in regarding those existing plans that I think we've done up. But yeah, I agree with you in trying to get something a bit more substantial to be able to put out for consultation with the community. The major people who utilise that lakefront are the holiday makers, the podies, the wakeboard, and yeah, so it'd be interesting to get some of their feedback on it. Yeah, so that's me. I'm glad I can speak.
Thanks, Fidu.
I'll mute myself now.
Okay, no, that's awesome. Yeah, so Libby, I think like we've got a lot of projects that need that consultation happening, so it'd be great if we get a team that's able to start to get to know our community and yeah, get those projects happening for us. Yeah, awesome. So any other questions for Libby on that?
Yeah, Libby, I missed part of what you were talking in the conversation you're having with the marae around the consultation process with that. Could you just give me a brief on what was the outcome of that?
Ka pai, kia ora whitu. Essentially, one of our team members, Helmut Hartung and David Ramaka, they're having those conversations. I believe they're having them with memory, and it's sort of a bit of a plan around what that could look like. And also looking at some funding for any upgrades that need to be done. And so then as part, whatever that looks like, and we'll probably talk to the community then. I haven't been involved in those conversations for two, but I'm more than happy if we need to loop you in, or if we need to get some more information at this stage, we can do so. But essentially the korero is ongoing around the future of the hall.
Cool.
Okay, so we have a mover for that item.
Yeah, I'll move, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Mark. And second, Lisa, thank you. Okay, community issues. So I had one issue to bring up, which was in regards to the houses on Moana Crescent that back onto the reserve. Which is kind of where the disc golf has just been set up along that front reserve, sort of between the Moana Street houses and the golf course. So for years, those houses have sort of utilised, have driven around the back and utilised the reserve to access their sections, and a lot have set up their sections to be able to get their boats in via that way, even though that is the part of council reserve. So we're just doing, and basically there's an access way that was padlocked off to those residents. Some were consulted, but not everybody. So I've just sent an email through to staff just to ask some answers of you know, what consultation was done, and what is there an easement or any right of way? Does anything exist for those houses, or if not, are we able to give them you know, some time frame to be able to make changes, because not everyone can access their boats through the front. So anyway, that's been worked on, and I haven't got any response yet, but I know the team's looking into it. But I said I'd bring it up at this meeting, because I've had meetings with some of the residents about that. So yeah, so that's with staff at the moment, and they will get back to us, and then I think they're going to meet with residents. So that was one issue.
Yeah, excuse me, Kirsty, is in regarding that, how many people are we talking about? And I do recall that Wairarapa Moana, and remember when Doc were trying to change over that agreement with Doc, and I think Wairarapa Moana had some input into that in regarding access, or whether if it was going to change, that they wanted to have some conversations, and they may have had some. I'm not sure who with around that. And I don't know that it's our responsibility to allow them to have access to the back of their sections through a public. At present, I do believe it's a public reserve. Is that correct?
As far as I'm aware, it's a public reserve, yeah. And that's why I was getting staff to just double check in case there was anything, any easement or any right of way that was historical, but I don't know of any, but they were going to look into that. But as far as I'm aware, it's just a council reserve land.
Yeah, so through the chair, Greg, have you got anything to add on that? I know you've been looking at it, or would you wait till you get everything finished?
So we're just waiting to get, I guess, that range of what the remedies could possibly be under the Reserves Act. There is no formalised agreement or access rights, or it is just public reserve, and under the Reserves Act, and then under council's bylaw, we don't allow vehicles on reserves. We have historically, we did have one of the residents there that we allowed access, and then initially the chain got cut, then the chain got removed altogether, and then got put back and then removed again. So we've been in and out of this process a wee bit. So we're just waiting for. So I've got a planner who's looking at what possible remedies you could come up with under the Reserves Act, and then that gives us a scope of options, I guess, to look at. But
yeah, and another thing,
right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and yeah, and it was just brought up that so the houses that are on Rewa Street, they're back onto the reserve as well, between Rewa Street and the golf course. Apparently, there's nothing stopping them, and they utilise all that area to be able to access. I'm not sure for what, if it's boats or just driving, but yeah. So that's, I suppose, if we're going to do it for one area, we need to do it for all those areas. But yeah, I just thought I'd raise that too.
Yeah. So we haven't got every reserve space fenced off. We tend not to do that unless there's a pretty big driver to do that. So I mean, it's certainly something we could look at. We'd probably just start with signage down there, just advising people that they shouldn't be driving on the reserve.
So getting back to Fetu's question, how many people or houses are we talking about here?
So there was, there's a number that are doing this. there's one who's probably adversely affected in that they've built themselves in, if you like. So where they're currently bringing the boat onto the property, there's now no way to get that to that part of the property from the front, from their legal access or Moana Crescent. So that's one person that's impacted to that degree. And then there's then others are ones that we've already spoken to and have said to us that they're quite happy going back to the way things were. So we know there's one for sure. I think when you met with residents, Madam Chair, you might have got a slightly different feedback from what we got, but yeah.
Yep. Right. Okay. Yep. So I'll just wait to hear back about that, and then you guys will be meeting with those residents that are affected.
Yes. And just one other point on that, there are a number of properties, including the one with the boat, who are encroaching on our reserve. So their properties extend out onto what is council reserve, and they've fenced it and they're mowing it. There's no structures on our reserve, but they're certainly treating it like it's their property. And this will be a good opportunity, I suppose, to tidy a lot of that up as well.
Okay.
So through the chair, just anything I can add to this is Gareth and I have had a conversation with this just last week. It's around encroachments but access through reserves for properties, and it is district wide, and it's something that we're putting our heads to see how we can stay consistent, because that's usually the hardest thing. Is once you start this, you've got to stay consistent in the way that you kind of you look after this area. So it is something that's at the top of mind, something that we will be working on, not just in Mangakino, but all over the place.
Yeah. Okay, were there any other community issues?
I had one, which I think is probably a no-go, but we had an email through to Glenwilla at Waikato River Trails, but it was around some access. I'm just reading the email. It's the lady who emailed through, Stacey, said she had a property close to that alleyway walkway on Karori Crescent. And they were wondering whether there's any, I'm not quite sure where that ended up historically. I don't think it's ever ended up going down and along to the lakefront, but she was asking whether there was any consideration in the future to linking that walkway down to the lakefront reserve. So that was sort of her question. Yeah.
So that always used to, but I think erosion has taken that out. Is that right, Greg? The one on Karari?
Sorry, so this is the one. So this is the one next to what was formerly
the principal's house. Yep.
Yeah, so
no, I don't know about erosion. It certainly takes you to Mercury's operating easement. It's not foreshore reserve. It is their operating easement, and they control that until you get. Well, no, actually, they control that for the whole of the lakefront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding all those people who built fancy walkways and decks along that area,
yep,
that would hinder maybe some of the access through there as well. Technically speaking, people should be entitled to, or do they need to keep off that like the reserves?
So that's through you, Madam Chair. That is Mercury's operating easement. So it's not land that we control.
Look after. Okay.
So speaking to you, Madam Chair, we're not the first situation to be like this. Hamilton City Council got some major problems up there with people encroaching down towards the river and claiming some of the council land and walkways as their own and impeding other people's access. It hasn't been an easy thing to solve. I think they're well on the way of doing it, but yeah, it's something we've got to be aware of at all times and to be consistent and fair.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. All right. Were there any other community issues?
No one's approached me about anything.
Okay. All right then. Okay, so can I get a mover for those community issues? Thanks, Vidu, and seconder.
I'll do that
Thanks,
if you like.
Mark. Okay. All right. So any members' reports?
I've got a little bit, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Out here in Turangi, we're fizzing at the bung, still fizzing at the bung. Spencer Road, the complete tar sealing job, oh, that's pretty impressive. Well done, team. Thank you very much. Before that, though, of course, we have changed our name. We're no longer the Turangi Sports and Settlers Association. We are now the Turangi Hall Connecting the Community. And our newsletter is no longer the newsletter, it's the Turangi Connection. So we're really making big roads and progress out here. Also, council is recladding our hall. Thank you very much. There is a bit of asbestos in it. So yes, the hall's being reclad. That's great. It would be an ideal time to put in some ranch sliders to give us a better access to the outside area. The wall's got to come off, the window's got to come out, and the door that's there has got to be taken out. So we might as well put back a decent sort of a door. So Heather Holt is looking at that with Ashley Waterworth, the chairman. We had a Christmas function, which is well attended. We haven't had anything else since. I mean, with the COVID and the lockdown, just too hard to organise. But yeah, great Christmas function. And that's as far as we've got this time. We're always trying to do something, but yeah, it's just a bit too hard. Out here in the field, though, things are, you know, I'd have to say that farmer confidence is pretty good. Product prices are good, and the rain, of course, came at the right time for us. It was great. But it's just like everything else. Our costs are horrendous. It's unbelievable where the money's going at present. Fertilizer's gone up 200%. Chemicals are up 100%. Repairs and maintenance, well, that's 100%. Fuel of over 30% or more. Wages and salaries are set to go up too, of course. They'll go up 7%. Yeah, and interest rate, of course, which affects not just farmers, but everybody else. And that's one of my belly aches at present, of course, is interest rates. I don't know how urban people are going to get on with their interest rates. Even a modest, and I'm led to believe that 500,000 is a modest mortgage on a house these days when they're paying in excess of $1 million for it. But imagine if you had to pay an extra 2% interest, that's $10,000 tax paid income that needs to be found just to give to the bank. I don't know how these people are going to do it. I haven't worked that out yet. The other thing that's concerning us a bit too, and council should be aware of it, is the amount of land that's being sold. Admittedly, some is going into urban development, and that's just the nature of the beast of towns and cities. They do grow. So, okay, some will go into urban development. But the amount of land that's being sold into forestry, and mainly for the carbon farming, and that in itself, if we look into that, it's pretty much a rort. Carbon farming is, it's a nonsense. It really is a nonsense. But those farms are being taken out of food production. So as I've explained to a number of MPs in recent days, you know, it's just not rocket science. You know, they're going on about the cost of living and particularly the cost of food, but the less land there is to grow food on, well, the less food there's going to be. So, you know, be aware of what's actually happening out there. And it is happening. And the carbon farming, I mean, big companies can come and buy land here in New Zealand. Singapore Airlines, for example, it buys large amounts of New Zealand land, and they're planting it in trees, taking it out of food production, planting trees, and Singapore Airlines just keep on pumping airplanes all over the world because they've got their bits and pieces covered with trees in New Zealand. It's not stopping pollution. It's just offsetting it. That's all, nothing less. It's a raw. Yeah, so that's about my bits and pieces to chew over.
Cool. I've got just a little bit of an update from Waikato River Trails. So MB has funded for all the great rides the start and end big signs, foundation signs, and they're going to be installed. So we're going to get one currently at the Aotearoa end. So that's the end of the trail. These and Poko Whenua, I think it is, I probably say it wrong, up at the other end. And they can be moved as needed, because one of the other things that the Trust is currently looking at and is an extension, a 5K extension of the trail from Aotearoa to Awakuri. And they have had really good discussions with the land farm group, because part of the trail will have to encroach a little bit into their space. So they're doing a lot of groundwork for that now, and we've got some funds, co-funding that we can have, and so they're going to apply again to MB to fund 50% of that sort of upgrade and keep it as a great ride. There was a bit of discussion around it being a heartland ride and a great continuation of the great ride. So yeah, so that discussions are happening at the moment to extend that. Definitely that bit that went into Aotearoa to the car park was a really good move, and it has been good keeping it off just that main intersection and Evelyn crossing we were used to at the bridge at the end of Ongoroto Road. So yeah, so that's looking positive at the moment. And then those end signs will be picked up and another concrete footing put in further up if that's the case.
Madam Chair, can I just ask Mark a question? The Spencer Road completion ceiling. So can I take it that goes past the Waterworks property?
Oh yes, that's the bit through the bush there. We
Through
do
the
have,
bush, so that's still been done, is it?
It's all done, but we do have an issue that I'm just keeping an eye on there.
Yeah.
We had that heavy rain the other day, and of course the tar seal goes right to the bank, but the water ran down, and it seems to have cut a trench apart between the edge of the tar seal and the bank. I'm going to keep an eye on it, because I'm thinking we might need to get a load of that heavy drainage metal and put in there. Really, it needs curb and channel, but that'd be ridiculous, put curb and channel in there for 3 houses. I think we need perhaps half a truckload of drainage metal down the side, that big heavy stuff, and that will give it a good wear surface. But right now it's just sort of carving into the pumice, and I think it'll stop doing it, but we will have quite a drain and water course in places.
Are we still pulling the trees out of there?
I think you've finished pulling the trees out of the bottom of Spencer Road, but you haven't started at the bottom of Pokuru yet.
Right.
And that part of the road's starting to look pretty sad. That middle section of bottom end of Pokuru is pretty sad at present. But you're going to start pulling some trees out of there, I imagine that we're going to do. There's quite a lot down there, so I suppose you're going to harvest them, are you? I'd imagine you would.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I see Kevin's on board there, so I'm sure Dennis Lewis, roadie manager, will be keeping an eye on all that anyway, Mark. But thank you for keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, I will keep an eye. I went straight up after that heavy rain that we had.
So I won't need to hesitate to go up Waterworks driveway anymore. So
no. You'll be the tea, scones, and you'll be right, mate. You know,
morning tea in the country.
You'll survive the.
Yeah, through the chair, Mark, I'll just make a note of that, and I'll make sure that either one of our roading engineers or our contractors get out there and just have a view. Yeah.
Yeah, give it a bit of a view. Just have a look. It may be too soon to do it yet, because it's just everything's settling down, but it may, give it another decent sort of rainfall, and it's going to be quite a trench down the side in places.
Yep, all good.
Keep an eye on it. I will. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, any other members' reports?
Yeah, I've just got a couple. I just want to touch on a little bit on Lisa's community report and regarding the vaccination process that we've been having. I think the last one was around our 12th or 13th time that we've done it. Since lockdown and we shifted away from the St. John's, we've been using the Mangakino Hotel. Tom Conklin, the new owner, has allowed us to use it, even though he sold the property. We've been using the lounge bar as a reference point for us, and it's been really good, and I'd like to thank him through probably this forum. And also Mangakino Rangatanga is the community group that I'm involved in that has been doing all the care packages, putting together some little water and packages to be able to give out to the whānau. We've had quite a number. Last time was, I think, was maybe a little bit more than what Lisa had said in that report, but a majority of them were for the booster shots. So people are still involved. There were only a few tamariki vaccinated at that time. And there were also protests around that, sitting out front, having their say about it, which is understandable, and it was certainly nothing like what's happening down in Wellington. So yeah, it's been great involvement, and thanks for the council for being able, Marama, to be able to support getting our cones and stuff out for that as well, and also some chairs. We have another one. Our next one due is, I think it's the second weekend of March. That's about all I have. I think, yeah, cheers.
Thank you for that. And yeah, thanks to all the kaimahi that have been organising that, because it's, yeah, first time I've seen a traffic jam in Mangakino that extended all that way uptown. Yeah, so good work. And yeah, no, I think I've raised everything that I needed to. So were there any other reports? No. Okay, can I get oh, sorry, Yvonne, did you have something?
No, I was just saying nothing for me.
Okay. All right, so can I get a mover for that? Yep. Thanks, Yvonne, and seconder. Thanks, David. All right, so that's the end of our hui today. So I'll just do our karakia. Kia tau ki a tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki, oi karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga, ki te wairua tapu, ake, amene.
Amene, kia ora, koutou.
Thanks, Kirsty.
All right.
Got it.
Okay, see you in 2 months' time.
Yep, keep safe and I'll catch you later.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye. it looks like.